looks like half of Glasgow's come out today for this, so thank you very much, no pressure. Welcome to another Social Media Week event, the second of my 3 events that I'm doing this week, and one of about almost 20 that Equator is doing. It's a busy week for us, and I think this is already proving to be one of our most popular talks. Hello also to everyone who's watching on live stream, be either now or in the future, or when it's being replayed on Dave. We're getting about, again, the same, at least 60 to 80 to 100 people watching online, and I'd certainly say Social Media Week, even just 2 days in, has been a stupendous success, and we're really pleased to be involved in it. And so anyway, enough of that. Just to give you a quick background about who I am and who Equator is and why I think I have the right to stand up here and preach about social media and SEO. We're an independently owned full-service digital agency. We're there. And we've walked a long and hard journey to get here to make sure that we share with you our over 10 years experience in digital. We do pretty much everything: websites, design, development, SEO, PPC, affiliates, media, blah. We're even launching a dirty great big website this week, so it's kind of non-stop for us. But social media is really at the heart of what we're doing now, and if you'd come along to my chat yesterday in the integration of the channels, you can appreciate just how big and integrated this side of things is getting, and well, given the size of Social Media Week, that underlines it. A little bit about me. I'm said marketing director of said agency. I've been working with Equator now for about 5 years, and I've been doing internet-y things for about 20. I've actually been social networking since 1992. Now, Facebook wasn't around by then, of course. That was more kind of a texty, telnety thing, but it still works, and I was poking people and friending people and all that sort of stuff way back then. Built a website in 94, built a web server in 95. They were both woeful. Any web designer would probably cry in their pillow with looking at those. And back then I was writing about marketing the internet before really marketing the internet started, so I've been really involved and really excited about it. It's a great part of the industry to work in, and clearly I know from looking at the guest list today, a lot of you are heavily involved in the industry as well, and clearly get excited about it. Well, getting excited today is obviously on the topic of social media and SEO, and where the two worlds collide. I think SEO is probably one of the most popular topics right now. And obviously social media is what this week is all about, and there's a big join between the two. And what I'm here to kind of bring to the fore is not on any too deep a level, because at the end of the day, SEO can get quite heavy duty. And for this, some of you might find this a little bit elementary, some of you might find some of it a little bit too highbrow. I'll try and keep the balance somewhere in between, because I know we've got a diverse audience. But what all the social signals are about, what's social signals got to do with my ranking, and how social is getting into the search mix, and also how it always has been there. What tools, platforms allow you to deliver the SEO benefits from social media, and ultimately where to focus your time and effort, because again, you're all busy people. You've got your website, you've got to try and sell all your products or services on it. You've got to SEO it in the traditional fashion as well. So there's a lot to consider, and there's a lot of things. This is very much a movable feast. Onwards. So there is a secret sauce to this, and I'm not going to come up on stage and say this is the answer, because I'll be honest, nobody actually has the answer. Though I know there's a few SEOs in here who'd study this in a much greater detail than me, and they'll have their views on it, and some of it will be based on slightly more scientific fact, but we don't actually know what these 200 or so ranking factors are. Schmidt, Google's ex-CEO, said he's not going to tell the world. Now, we know there's certain fundamental things, H tags, type tags, blah, blah, blah. Anyone who's tripped over a beginner's guide to SEO will know what the foundational stuff is. But the thing is, though, the social stuff is moving so fast. We know in 2007, MySpace was valued at £451 million, and then it was valued about £12 billion about a year later, and then this year they sell it for £35 million. So we know how fast social media moves. And maybe MySpace was considered in the Google algorithm back then. Maybe it still is, goodness knows. But it changes so often. We know Facebook is always tweaking around with things. We know that Zuckerberg and his team of PHP coders can't help themselves. And Google's always trying to keep ahead of this, to such the point that you'll very often hear this week about how 25% of Google's staff bonuses depends on the success of social media in their organization this year. And if you'd be blind to have not heard about Google+, their belief that this might be the answer to their problems. And their problems being that they have no tangible, meaningful social media tool yet. But it's a business secret, and Google is going to be as open as it wants to be on this. At the end of the day, it is banking so much on the success of Google Plus and how that will ultimately integrate with the rankings that they can't help but try and keep it to themselves. They want to try and get ahead of Facebook because they realize that no longer are they the #1 website in the US. Facebook's ahead of them. No longer are they getting all digital advertising revenue. Facebook is now getting up to 20% of US display revenue. So they can see a threat, and that threat is a Harvard graduate called Mark Zuckerberg. But what we do know is there are certain things in the Google algorithm that help us on our journey. Those who are deep enriched into the world of SEO are always listening to every word that ever comes out of Google's mouth, especially people like Matt Cutts and so on, who people trawl over the words that these people say because they're looking for clues. And we're looking for clues to suggest what things might be in there and what might actually be happening. At the end of the day, Google's built its strong reputation on relevance. Relevance, relevance, relevance. Both natural and paid search have evolved to be something, you search for something, it will try and give you something relevant. But of course, it does lack a little bit of trust. It's a computer telling you what you think you want. And a lot of people get annoyed with Google. They think, oh, you're ranking because you want it to. There's a lot of disbelief that Google's actually just trying to give you what it thinks it wants. They will, of course, say, no, we're trying to give you what you're looking for. Social signals can start to bring that a little bit more to the reality. At the end of the day, if Google knows what you actually like, if Google knows what your friends like and what you interact with, all the kind of stuff that a lot of you will be sharing on Twitter and Facebook and through other means as well, then you're starting to get into a place where, oh, actually, if it can relate directly to the fact that I like Coronation Street, directly to the fact that I like M&Ms or whatever it happens to be, then maybe you're going to start to trust the rankings a little bit more. But at the moment, this is a big challenge for them. It does add a huge dimension of trust. And at the end of the day, our actual intent can differ from our perceived intent. What we type into the search engine might not be ultimately what we're looking for. We know over the 10-year or so existence of Google that people are starting to use search better and understand how to search in a more intelligent way. Search terms are getting longer. The search box got longer again in the last few weeks. It's just ever evolving. But again, people are still not necessarily getting to the answers that they want quick enough. And that's what Google really wants to happen. We already know Google already uses Facebook and Twitter for social signals. They've sort of said as much. And that's been a really important thing because we know that likes are weighted in there somehow. We know that how many people retweet your message, how many links are out on Twitter. All of these things are starting to get built into the mix. How much of that remains to be seen, but it's starting to affect their rankings in a number of different ways, and we'll cover that off today. Of course, Google Plus is out there. It's on a kind of still slightly closed beta, and there's no great evidence yet that it's affecting rankings other than your own. At the end of the day, you start +1ing things, trying getting them out of your top 10 becomes a very hard job indeed. But it is going to happen at the end of the day. The reason Google's getting into this Google Plus, other than just to try and one-up Facebook, is because at the end of the day, if they can get the social signals that Facebook are getting out of Plus, then they've got the other piece of the jigsaw that they're missing right now. And a little bit of evidence about this. For those who are into SEO big time, I really enjoy it. A really top site, a really top resource, and top tool, one of the ones that we use, is SEO Mods. And every year they do a survey of what is the perceived ranking factors that gets you up and down in Google. And we can see here, social signals are here to say people believe these are on the increase. Analysis of a site page perceived value to users, social signals at page level, social signals at a domain level. Everyone believes this is where it's going. Again, where is it going? Well, having a quick look at, the ranking survey, the correlation of social media-based factors. Now, this is where it gets a little bit hoity-toity. But this is starting to understand that, Facebook shares, there's a high correlation between Facebook shares and ranking position. Now, as SEO Moz are very careful to point out, correlation is not necessarily the same as causation, and just because it appears that this is happening doesn't necessarily mean it's happening. But certainly there's a lot of echoes out there that suggest that there's starting to be a very strong relationship to it. Not forgetting, of course, that Google and Facebook are not best friends right now. Anyway, onwards. So, how do we get a little bit of benefit? How do we start pushing ourselves into this space? Because at the end of the day, yes, it might only be happening a little bit right now and in some pockets and using some very clever SEO techniques. There are certain ways to exploit it. exploits that might not longer work in 6 months' time, but nonetheless, it's going to happen. It's already happening. How do we get on board? Foundational stuff a little bit, but again, blogs have been the foundation, certainly within the creator, of our SEO strategy for some substantial time, and they are a core foundation of social media. At the end of the day, they are always been something that Google has treated with great authority and great respect. Why is that? Well, technically they're structured well. There's H tags in there, there's title tags in there, it's themed content. A blog is always about a thing. Well, if you do a good blog, it is certainly. The content's regularly updated, there's categories and there's tags, which all give the content some of the theming that Google can easily understand. As well as this, because they're so easy to set up, you can have a blog in 5 minutes. You go to wordpress.com, blogger.com, all the rest of it, press a few buttons, you have your own website, relatively speaking. So it's quick and easy to get into it. And of course, again, the engagement factor, the social aspect of blogs, again, enriches that content. You can have people, you write a good blog post, and you can get people commenting on it. That bit could be your blog post, that bit can be your comments. A chap was on this stage last night from the BBC. Now, don't get me wrong, we're not all the BBC. He talked about how one blog post that they did on Strictly Come Dancing got 20,000 comments, which meant they did that much work, the users did that much work, but it made that page an absolute authority on that topic. Now, obviously, we can't all be the BBC, but writing about something that people are engaged about or people can get interested about can make your life very easy. But with everything in SEO, you can build it and then Google will try and fix it, but you can also, it will exploit the holes. SEO is to some degree about exploiting holes and things. And over the years, the blog marketplace got absolutely cluttered with spam. It wasn't just about writing some nice stuff. People started going a little bit nuts for it. You'll be familiar with, over the years, with blogs like these. In the default WordPress blue template, just kind of gibbering on about a particular random topic with very little enrichment of content. There are tens of thousands and thousands of blogs that look just like this all over the web, because that's what you get when you start with WordPress, a blue template, and people just dump content on it. You don't see them so much nowadays because, again, Google's got better at making them go away. You get people who just are trying to make money out of a blog. This one is a woeful blog that one of my team sent around to me this morning. They literally it's just a blog about electric toothbrushes. Now, it's a relatively automated stream, literally just pulling out Amazon images, Amazon content, and it's an affiliate link back to Amazon. Awful, awful thing, but they're trying to rank for, funnily enough, best electric toothbrush. Who cares, really? But it's all this stuff that starts to kludge things up. This terrible website about free Android APK files, whatever the hell one of those is not even written in plain English. I don't even know if the person can speak the English language. And it's just cluttered content, and it must just spewing stuff, and it really puts people off. So if you're trying to write a genuine, honest, interesting blog about Android APK files, or if you're that bloody interested, an electric toothbrush blog, then you're going to be finding yourself up against a lot of nonsense. So it's really about cutting through that, and it's done a lot of harm in the area. So of course, it didn't take us SEOs long to recognize this, that blogs have a lot of power. But technology being what it is, you can get auto-written, auto-hosted blogs left, right, and center. You can have, there's a Markovian algorithm which writes content for you dynamically and allows blogs to just appear like that. Again, you'll be familiar with them. They read sort of like English. You get a sentence and you're fine, but every other sentence after that starts to get ever the more convoluted. And then we're still, we do this, but it's again about doing it relevantly. Comment spam starts to appeal. You've written a blog about weddings or cakes or whatever it happens to be, and somebody's saying, oh, visit my Vegas casino right now, 0909.me/blah, blah, blah. And you're sitting there going, well, what's this? So things like Akismet start to turn up, tools to try and stop all this and clamp down on it, because at the end of the day, owning a blog started to become a chore. And even if you wanted to do an honest, decent SEO blog, it starts to become a chore because everyone's just piling in and trying to rip you off. WordPress started to realize that their lovely freely available software and freely available hosting on WordPress.com was getting absolutely horsed. WordPress have a rule: you can't have any commercial blogs on their platform. Yeah, you can. You just have to make them not look that way. And they started cutting down really hard on that. And the next thing they did was they went, well, WordPress blogs are powerful. Let's make our links no follow. For those who don't know what that means, is it tells Google and the other search engines that This isn't a link you should follow. This is something you should ignore. Google still looks at them, but it does discount them to some degree. You now have to pay WordPress, bless their cotton socks, to make them do follow links and give them value again. And of course, they can still change their mind at the drop of a hat. You might have thought you got away with it for 6 months. You're sitting there with your nice secret commercial blog, and then all of a sudden somebody moderates it and kicks you off. And all that hard work gone to heck. And then, of course, we've had the Panda update. We all heard about how the New York Times shopped JCPenney and all these sorts of tales last year. Suddenly, SEO's front page news in the broadsheets. And of course, that gets Google wired up because, again, they sell on relevance. So they've gone nuts and, again, battered a lot of blogs down, blogs that repeat content, blogs that are not authority topics. So, again, it's a very much a movable feast, and it's still changing. We're on Panda 3.0 or something like that at the moment. It's just constant, and it's constantly moving. It could have all died, of course. At the end of the day, this could have just turned into a ball of fire and just burnt to hell. But at the end of the day, because enough people were doing enough quality content, journalists were taking on, The Guardian has them, The Telegraph has them, the NHS has them, decent quality blogs. There was still a lot of authority there. But again, Google needed to try and bring them to the fore because there are good ones are really good content. And from an SEO perspective, writing good SEO blogs is very important. It comes back to the usual factors of trust, authority, and relevance. At the end of the day, SEO and social media in the sense of blogs is perfectly doable if you write good, rich, thematically thought about content and try and keep it on the topic and then try and outreach to other bloggers and outreach to other sites that are relevant. Even if you're building it to your own other sites on other platforms, doing it in a smart way, using not all WordPress, using different blogging platforms, doing them on different IP addresses, doing them on different C-class domains, all that sort of stuff makes it seem a little bit more believable. But the content still has to be tangible. In our office, we have hundreds of blogs, and the team are writing about everything from ferries to health services to green energy. And obviously, we don't intend to write for the human being. We're intending to try and give the search engine something meaty to hold on to. But we always get a little bit of an extra kick when humans, you and I, start to interact with these blogs, because it means we must have done something good from the point of view of making the content seem believable, seem engaging. And it does come from this regularly updated content, well-authored, consistent and topical content. The links that come out from your blog being relevant, the links that come into your blog, the links that come in from Facebook pages, the links that come in from social bookmarks, and all the rest of it. And the fact that you're on top of it, at the end of the day, a lot of these cheap, what I would call cheap SEO blogs, one of the many reasons they fail is because somebody puts them up and they just spew out content and they hope for the best. They're not really staying on top of it. They're not really engaging with it. Because at the end of the day, social media is all about engagement. Social media is all about the conversation. So a blog needs to be having that conversation. A blog's signals come out when you start to see it work like a Facebook page, that people are engaging with it. People are linking into it. People are blog rolling you, etc., etc. So it's not hard to do. You just have to make sure you've thought about it in all the ways I've talked about. So this is what you kind of boils down to this. It needs to resemble an enthusiast blog. I call it an enthusiast blog as much as possible because you do get blogs that are heavily enthused. I have an ex-colleague who writes a blog about Falkirk FC's football history across the 100 and odd years that they've existed. And if you want to check out Falkirk FC Historian, he'll be very pleased to have you there. But you get the impression, you see from that blog, he's doing it purely off because he's enthusiastic about it. But it's a lot of rich, themed content going down and down and down the page. An SEO blog that can look as close to that as possible is going after a particular topic. And strangely enough, it does rank for Falkirk FC terms. With these tenets in play, you can deliver real visitors to your blog, and real interaction, but ultimately you're building authority. You want, it's not the be-all and end-all. You want your blog to have page rank. I know it's not the biggest thing, but it's a good indication that your blog's going somewhere. You want people to be linking back to it. You want people to be commenting on it meaningfully, and all that stuff goes on. Self-hosting as well, this is important now. Like I mentioned, you can just go into WordPress.com and have a blog. Hosting that blog yourself or on some server somewhere, or having multiple ones if you really want to get deep and rich into it. Self-hosting is better because once it's done, WordPress is free, but it means that you're in control of it. So if WordPress changes their mind about whether you like your blog or not, it doesn't matter, it's on your hosting. They're not going to suddenly discount you or change the rules on you. It's a little bit of an effort. You have to buy some web space, you have to buy a domain name, all that sort of stuff. But it's important, and actually have about half a dozen. Look at the size of your organization. You're going to have to personal loans, 50,000 blogs. I don't know, you're going to need a lot. And you just need to assess the marketplace you're in. But even just as a business, if you've got a website, think about having a blog attached to it and think about what you can meaningfully do with it. And then make sure that the SEO side of your strategy is linked into it. The SEO is linking into your website from your blog as well. It's a solid core part of an SEO strategy, but it is at its heart social media. Social bookmarking, I won't dwell on this greatly, partly because I think that the sands are shifting on this quite a lot, but it's absolutely important. And again, it comes back to the world of blogs, it comes back to the world of Facebook. You know, when you go to the BBC News website, you read an article, you see at the bottom these sort of things. Maybe not that many, thank God, but there's lots of them. And they're encouraging you to share. They're encouraging you to share that story. They're encouraging you to tell other people about it. The biggest ones that we're probably most of you are familiar with are Dig, Delicious, and Stumble Upon, but there are others, hundreds and hundreds of others. And it's interesting, they've always been there from all the time that I've been a creator, they've been in the mix, and it's about giving that story votes, about giving that story a little bit of traction. Don't get me wrong, I think these are starting to lose their authority a little bit. I remember a couple of years ago, looked at the effect of social bookmarks on a BBC News story. Micah Chap who used to work with me just went through and had a look, so how many digs to get, how many of this, and for a big news story in the BBC News website, people aren't engaging with them massively. However, again, the one that they are starting to really get into is the Facebook one, liking it or retweeting it. They're getting far more activity now than, say, Dig or Delicious. And if you go to the Dig homepage, the numbers next to the top stories are dwindling. But they still have power, and they still give that outreach. It's just a fundamental part of it. It weighs the content, it categorizes content. It's all good SEO stuff. And it's so simple to do. Like a lot of the social media side of things, it is flipping easy. Tools such as Social Marker and OnlyWire, you press a button, you put a couple of bits of details in, out it goes to 50 or so of the things immediately. On the one hand, that makes your life easier, and you can just do it and becomes just a part of the routine. On the other hand, it's what's commoditizing, it's what's kind of pushing the value down on it, because these tools kind of just make it part of the routine. So it's important, again, if you want to really benefit from social bookmarking, and again, this is about thinking about, for the term link bait, or this, whatever is really relevant, making something that you think is going to get travel, then you really want to put your back into this, because again, they can really make something get out there. But it's, they're not that powerful. They're not the be all and end all. They just should be part of the routine. Anyway, onwards. Twitter. You're probably all tweeting right now about how bizarre and tedious this talk is, but give me a link and I don't care. Twitter is great. 100 million users for the third time. Now 100 million active users. Still no profit, but that's not my problem. It is officially classed as a blogging platform, a microblogging platform. This week in Social Media Week, people are writing 140-character stories that will get published. It's all that. But it can be a surprisingly strong force. I've already touched upon how retweets and tweet links in articles, etc., are getting far more gravity than, say, Dig or Delicious does. About a year or so ago, Google was pretty much in bed with Twitter. They got really friendly and all the rest of it, and there was a real-time feed, and you search for things like Tiger Woods when Tiger Woods was doing what Tiger Woods was doing, and Twitter was piling up the rankings, and it was there. You could read them in real time, and that was great. And there's been that strong relationship. Then they had a slight falling out, and now Twitter's a bit more friends with Microsoft, and well, oh dear, never mind. But that's still there, because at the end of the day, this is a form of social bookmarking at its basic level. Links in tweets are spied, or at the end of the day, they're seen as votes. Yes, they're no follow again, but you can deal with that. And retweets are considered votes, retweets with links doubly, so think about how quickly you can build a link pool. All right, a very narrow, a very particular link pool, but nonetheless, you can get out there very, very quickly, especially if you do something controversial or interesting. Go and set fire to somebody, go and kill somebody, and then tweet about it. That'll travel. But Google does say, yeah, we do compute and use author quality in reference to Twitter as a factor. How deep and how wide, we don't know. However, there's some SEOs that are cleverer than me that are already finding little exploits in this, and I'll come on to that in a minute. Twin integration, catchy word for the day. Twitter's tool, Twitter's magic, and also the lack of ability to make money, exists in the tools and sites that have created it. You don't have to actually go to twitter.com to work with it. Most of you probably use Twitter in a way that doesn't touch the website. And that's great because it means that tool's traveled far and wide. There are many sites and tools that republish tweets and represent them in different ways. You've got tools on like iPads, like the Flipbook and all the rest of it. Tweet meme, Paperly takes all your social media feeds and turns them into a kind of newspapery thing. All of these things are republishing your content, and the more you're connected to, the more you've made an effort to try and make them meaningful, the more it starts to work. So if you're trying to rank for a particular topic, all your Twitters, all your blogs, and all your Facebooks and all things come into a Paperly, and you've got another thing on another topic. And it's just about furthering that outreach. There are people who rip Twitter off, take all the content, or as much content as they can reasonably spider, republish it, but with the no-follow tags removed. There's over 100 Twitter clones around the world right now. When we put this up inside you, you'll be able to click that link and go and look at them all. There's ridiculous amounts of them. The Chinese are particularly big on this. And it is absolutely huge. But again, the beauty of Twitter is in its simplicity. 140 characters, get a link, get it, make it travel, make people see it, make people engage with it, make sure it's integrated into your blog, into your website, so this into your emails. And you suddenly start to get an opportunity to create gravitas. Twitter's own analytics is coming soon, and this is going to be very interesting. There's already tools left, right, and center to try and give you a little bit more insight into what parts of your Twitter are working. You'll know yourself, I mean, I'm not talking about things like clout to tell you how important and how big you are. I'm talking about the stuff that matters, the stuff, how many people are actually retweeting you, and what time of day is it, and how far has that traveled? How many people are reading it? All that sort of stuff you really want to know, because at the end of the day, which messages travel the furthest? Because I now want to go back and do more of them. And how do I get those links in, and who's repurposing them, who's retweeting them, who are the authorities doing that? Because then I want to go and I'm add them to my blog roll. I want to then go and contact them personally and maybe see if I can get a direct link. And Twitter's a great way of actually finding these people out, because if they're engaging with your content at this level, then they need to come back into your SEO program and you need to be having conversations with them. Yeah, you might have to pay for a link, but if you assess their page rank, et cetera, well, you'll get over it. So it's really a massively powerful tool. And this is just I didn't do this. I know not even anyone close. A chap called Brian Solis and Jess Reed do these, and they do these quite a lot. But it gives you an idea of all the different types of tools that you can find in, as it calls, the Twitterverse. Fascinating stuff, but it gives you, there's literally every type of tool and every type of marketplace in here. And some of them are really, really cool. Some of them are really boring, like Foursquare. But there's a lot of really interesting tools. And again, from an SEO perspective, even just from an interest perspective, going and seeing what a lot of these tools do, and most of them are free, is really interesting, is really powerful. Again, the more of these you're just plugged into, the more you've just gone through the process, the simpler it gets, the less your efforts are having to be manually replicated. It's really cool, and it's really powerful stuff. On the topic of using Twitter, and I mentioned link bait before. Link bait is an SEO term for give me lots of links by doing something cool or controversial or clever. It's a great, at the end of the day, you want to put something out there that will get people linking back to you in as many different ways as possible. The go-to tool for that has, of course, been Dig and Delicious. You do something really interesting. And there's a lot of great SEOs who do a really good job of that. Anyone who's not heard of Dave Naylor in the SEO world is obviously missing a trick. He's great at this. He's always on news articles. A recent example of that is when Brian Suter, the slightly eccentric bus driving guy, came out and said, "Oh, Google's not ranking my site." Dave went off and got one of his team to do an analysis of, well, why isn't it working? And got a bit of secondary newsworthiness off the back of that. Pretty clever, if you ask me. All he was doing was just going to see what's his authority like, has he got any duplicate content, blah-de-blah. But he's creating a bit of link bait by following stuff that's trending in the news, making SEO relevant to everyday people. So it's interesting, it's evocative, because you're sitting there going, well, is Brian Suter being kicked off of Google because he's annoying? Or is it because there is just some genuine SEO issues with it? So he's really getting into that. But Twitter goes beyond the bookmarkers. Twitter goes beyond what Dig and Delicious can do. At the end of the day, I mentioned before, it has 100 million followers. 100, and a large percentage of them are on almost every day. Twitter is pushcasting. It's you speaking and everyone else listening, because it's in your stream. Dig and Delicious, you kind of have to go and look for them. But I'm saying, visit my link. You all heard me. You might not engage with it, but you're saying visit my link. But again, I could be a little bit more selective about it. I know some of you in the audience are more akin to understanding SEO concepts than others. I know that some of you probably have found this quite basic up to now. But if I was to break down my conversation, I would say the same things in different ways to different parts of the audience so I'm not alienating each individual group. The same is true of Twitter. Go and find out who you want to be talking to and pick out those people and try and target those people, because again, they're the people that are more likely to repurpose your message and push it forward. They're also more likely to consider listening to, if you're not every other tweet sending them something irrelevant. It's just like any other broadcast medium. Say something that I'm listening to. Don't spam me. And you're more likely to pick up. A little bit more work. You're going to have to sit there and curate your list a little bit and think about, well, who am I contacting and when and why and what do I hope that they'll do with it. But it gives you that little bit more outreach. And at the end of the day, this is a bit crass, but retweets are the reproductive organs of Twitter. And at the end of the day, that's what you want. That's really what you want. Again, there was a talk last night on the psychology of social media, and they were talking about the millennials, about people who grow up and they feel judged and valued by how many retweets they get and how many likes that they get and how many friends that they get. I'll be honest, we SEOers aren't any different. That's really what we want. At the end of the day, we want our stuff to travel far and wide with us having to do the minimal effort. At the end of the day, 100 million users can't be wrong. And it's just about, think clever things. Well, what could I do that's cool link bait? If you're very creative, if you're very clever, and this is been a big link bait tool over the last year, although it's starting to get a little bit long on the tooth. This thing that we're just looking at, the guy, Brian Solis, is his own website, briansolis.com. He's a social media guru. But he gets all these sorts of diagrams. You may have seen the ones like a spectrum of colors with all the different things. They're mildly meaningless to a certain degree. They're mildly interesting. This one I'd say is more interesting. But people repurpose this, a link back, a link back. Every time it goes out, it's a link back. All he asks for is a link back. It's free. You can go and use it. I'm using it in my presentation. I'm giving a little bit a jig here. You're probably going to check out his website and see what other stuff he's got. Great link bait. All it takes is somebody called Jeff3 to dress up for him. Happy days. Now, in the social media sphere and SEO sphere, people are doing infographics left, right, and center. Find a bit of information, turn it into something meaningful. The Guardian has done a superb job in the last 12 months of turning data into something visual, something that's tangible. You'll all have seen the kind of squared off graphs that give you about population density and money spent in the government and wastage and blah, blah, blah. All of that stuff travels because it makes things a lot more tangible and meaningful to people, and the Guardian gets backlinks aplenty. So it's just, again, think about what tools and techniques and people are available in your organization to make something that has a little bit of reach. Now, this isn't my idea. I'm not going to pretend it is. There's a very, very clever guy called Martin McDonald who came up with this tip, but it gives you an understanding of how you can use Twitter to a little bit benefit. Now, most of you, probably not all of you, have never probably touched promoted tweets and never thought anything of them. Poor old Twitter, you need to please pay for them because they're going to go bankrupt if you don't. These are really strong and powerful tools, and this chap did a little bit of an experiment with one, because promoted tweets, you pay Twitter 10 cents, 20 cents, whatever it happens to be at the current going rate, to punt out a tweet with a link in it, a link to a particular page. Try and make that tweet interesting and something that people are going to like to retweet, not just, oh, hello, check out my new website. Something that's going to have a little bit of a journey on it. But it's something you want to appear in the rankings quickly, because at the end of the day, Twitter has a powerful authority, albeit in a very short space of time. Like blog articles come, they go, spike and go, spike and go. But doing promoted tweets can really give you an extra power, because at the end of the day, as far as the user's concerned, there's still a tweet in Twitter that says promoted tweet. But you don't pay very much for this. The chap there, he was talked about, he spent about 50, 60 quid on promoted tweets. And you only pay for the first retweet that you get, but you don't pay for any other retweets after that. And again, if your message is compelling enough, if your message is about winning something or whatever it happens to be, something that's going to travel, you retweet after retweet after retweet. And if you're thinking about potentially ranking for a particular term in a niche market, I'm not saying personal loans, I'm not saying car insurance, something that's going to be like an absolute nosebleed, but something tangible and meaningful in a niche. So you can actually get a bit of a spike in the rankings just by doing this for a very short space of time, and for all it costs, I think it's worth a go. If you want to find more about that sort of stuff, check out the guy's website. He's got a kind of few cool but slightly controversial ideas, not ones for the big brands, because again, a lot of these things in this marketplace, as soon as somebody goes and talks about it, they go and tend to get blocked by Google. Again, as well, there's more and more people thinking about this, thinking about the time of day that you tweet, and again, just like the time of day that you do email, people are starting to analyze what time of day makes a difference for your tweets and how far they will travel as well. At the end of the day, if you can do the same 5-minute job at 2 o'clock in the afternoon rather than 10 in the morning and it'll have twice the effect, worth a go. There's a tool called timely.is which gives you an idea of what it thinks is a good time for you to be sending your tweets. And again, less is more, less effort for more output. So Twitter's really got it going on, and I think once they start to figure out actually how to monetize the damn thing, I think it's going to be here to stay. Facebook, on the other hand, well, interesting. You can get likes, you can pokes, you can get chat and blah, blah, blah. Do you get rankings? Well, again, Google has explicitly said it attempts to calculate authority of persons on Facebook. Not everybody, but it's trying to work out who the real interesting people are, the real authorities, just as it tries to understand if Tom Hanks is actually Tom Hanks or just somebody pretending to be Tom Hanks. The extent of this is not well understood. Again, they're really keeping their cards close to their chest on this one. But despite the fact that Facebook is enormous, the search power of it from an SEO perspective is still somewhat limited. It is quite hard to game Facebook, as Andy and my team said. It's partly, and it's because, again, thinking about all the stuff you have to do to make a blog seem realistic, trying to pretending to be a person that you're not for the purposes of SEO is doubly hard. It becomes, you're having to think of your job as a persona. It is a real challenge to do. At the end of the day, Facebook is built for people, for conversations, for interactions. It's a whole social media thing. Trying to jam links in there is a challenge, but it's not impossible. You can do follow links from Facebook. One of my guys, and again, Andy showed me yesterday how you can sneak out do follow links on Facebook, but it's not in the way you think. It's not just by jamming stuff into conversation or trying to do something that way. It does have its uses, however, and I think we're only at the start of that particular road as far as getting information and getting links out of Facebook is concerned, because it's a powerhouse and it's not about to go anyway anytime soon. At a simple level, again, it's just thinking about automation, outreach, extending your stuff. If you tweet, you can have it reappear on your Facebook page. I kind of do that. From a personal perspective, it's not always great because how you choose to use your Twitter versus how you choose to use your Facebook page are quite different. I don't have the same people on Twitter as I do on Facebook. I'd be terribly disappointed if I did. But you can build your own page. You can add, if you've got a blog or blogs, you can have that content coming into your Facebook page. It's another place for that content to be viewed. It's where your tweets can come in. It carries links across. It's a foundational stuff. I'm not pretending this is rocket science, but again, it's extending that content. Don't forget, a lot of people do this. A lot of corporations do. They don't make sure that their page is open for everyone to view. At the end of the day, it's you only see what you see in your own Facebook page is not what the world sees. Go and log out and see how you can be found. Because again, the one thing that's slightly woeful about Facebook, but something that needs to be considered, is the search bar at the top, because it's really not very good, and it's not very smart at trying to find names of companies or elaborate names if you're in no way connected to that organization or individual. It's terrible. So think about that as well, because at the end of the day, according to current numbers, about 2.5% of US internet searches are done on that stupid blue box at the top of the screen. And people are using it not just to do searches within Facebook, but searches out with Facebook. So it's really worth considering, a bit of SEO on your Facebook page using the same principles, content, keywords, etc., etc. It's just another web page, so treat it like one and treat it with respect. But do you remember who underpins that search bar? And it's demonstrated by its woefulness in some degrees. It's Bing. Hands up here who's a Bing user. Go on, admit it. Oh, look, nobody. However, don't forget, in the States, if you are dealing with an American audience, Bing has a bit more authority in the States. And, well, everything that Bing does that's cool, and that's not exactly an exhaustive list, happens to be on Bing.com in the US. All the clever stuff that they're doing with payment integration, all the stuff they're doing with bringing in meta information about travel, air flights and hotels and prices and all that stuff It's all happening on Bing.com in the US. And you can go and have a look. You can have to fiddle around with Bing a little bit. You have to go and tell it that you live in the States, and then you have to go and say, I want to be on the American version of the Bing, and then it'll all come to life. But in the States right now, if you're logged into Facebook, you can be logged into Bing, and Bing can sort of see the information that's going on your Facebook page. Again, not entirely sure what's going on there, but obviously Microsoft have that multi-million-pound 2.83% share in Bing, and they're clearly working very closely together in this because Microsoft can totally see what the opportunity is with getting into bed with Facebook. And Facebook are probably going, yeah, at least it'll make our search bar less shit. But it can do what Google can't do. It can see behind the wall. And Google hates Facebook for this. Google goes on and on and on about, oh, but the open web, we must share information. Yeah, apart from the 200 search factors that you're not going to tell me what they are. But it's dying to get in behind the wall of Facebook. And it's the one thing that Bing has got, and Google are bricking it. And this is why they've been so aggressively trying to get Google Plus working. And that we're only at the start of that journey. But you can see why they're desperate for Plus to work. If they can make Plus work at even to half the degree that Facebook does, all the social signals come to work. And we all know, we're all Google users because Google are better at search. Google are better at giving us that relevance, that authority, and that trust. Imagine how the brainiacs that sit behind the Google search box turn their head to actually getting their hands on this information. We know that Facebook collect every last piece of information that comes through their box. They have petabytes of information collected on us. And they've said themselves, they're not really knowing what to do with that quite right now because it's like trying to find a diamond in the rough, trying to find a pattern in the endless numbers in pi. It's incredibly difficult. But what remains unknown is that, is this liking stuff, is all the stuff that you're doing, the interactions you're having on Facebook, does it have an effect on Bing? When was the last time you checked your rankings on Bing? Maybe it is worth a go. Again, Bing does do some things differently, and especially if you are wanting to look to an American audience. But probably 99.9% of you in this room are focused on a UK audience, probably maybe even a West Scotland audience, I don't know. And with less than 4% of the UK share, you have to ask yourself, is it worth bothering with right now? And I'm not going to say yes or no, because at the end of the day, you look and see what Bing's doing for you right now. And at the end of the day, you're still going to be focusing on the 90-odd% that Google's going to bring you through the front door. But keep an eye on it. Keep a very close eye on what Bing's doing, because they might, Microsoft might actually come up with something decent and make something really worthwhile. And it's been a while since they've done that. Okay, we kind of round up here. Just things I think you should, my takeaways for the day. Social bookmarking, just because it's easy, just because it's process-driven, it's the right thing to do. Bit of outreach, and again, thinking about using social media, even just to bring your content that you've created, that press release, that new page, whatever it happens to be, make sure the buttons are on your website, make sure the buttons are at the top of your email, make sure the buttons are bloody everywhere. Because at the end of the day, you'll use them, make sure you're clicking them, or you're having posters, OnlyWire and these sort of things, clicking them, but make sure other people can click them too. Because again, the social aspect of SEO is, heck, some human might engage with my content from time to time. I might as well be ready for it. Blogging is a must-have. It is a must-have, and if you're doing SEO and you're not doing blogging on some level in some framework, up to an enterprise level of having 50 websites and 25 different C-class domains and 10 different blogging platforms, it's an enriched part of it. You can upscale it big time, but you still have to bring that quality back to it. It has to be thematically relevant, and you have to make it seem like it's a human thing. Twitter, I think we're only starting the journey and what potentially that could be great for, but we could also be starting the journey of Google working out that we're all spamming Twitter and they try and shut it down. I think it's going to be a bit of ebb and flow as we go along, but again, one to keep an eye on, and I think even just thinking about Twitter and your wider social media sphere and thinking back about, again, think link. How do I get that into Twitter? How do I get other people to bring that to bear? And not just spamming the world by yet another digital platform. But at the end of the day, like anything SEO, like anything, you start with powerful content. You start with powerful content. On-site or off-site can beat all of this hands down, relatively speaking. If you're trying and doing all this, but your website's all done in Flash, or you've not thought about H tags, or you've not thought about your title tags, and you can have as many Facebook pages and many blogs as you like, you're just piddling in the wind, I'll be quite honest. get this bit right, then work up the page. Don't start at the top and work down, because ultimately you're going to be wasting your time. We know social signals are happening. We know social signals are going to have an increasing effect on your SEO rankings, and the depth and breadth of that is yet to some degree still unclear. But we do know that there are key ranking factors, and your content, and the way your content, all the stuff that you get in a purist SEO conversation are absolutely critical. And if you haven't got that, don't waste your time. Start with that and then come back to it. On that note, that's me gone for 45 minutes, so that's a new record for me and keeping it in time. I'm happy to take any questions now, but I appreciate also you might want to ask questions later. That's my email address. There's our Equator Agency is our tweet account, and that's mine as well. You can get me on Google+, Facebook, MSN on my Gmail account. You can call the office at 229-1800. And you can engage and win one of 5 Nokia E7 smartphones by scanning that little thing or going to socialite.eqtr.com. We built a little app this week, which is about responsive web. It's all built around responsive web design, which you can find out more about this week. And part of that is just engaging throughout all social media week events, not just ours. And there is really a chance to win an E7 smartphone, and they're about £350 a pop, so not to be sniffed at if you want a blue, not iPhone. So enjoy the rest of the week, and I'm happy to take your questions now. That's it. Yep.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I want to ask you a question about blogging on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
You're working on your main website, you're doing all your SEO work, and you have a blog.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on actually embedding that blog as a Facebook app to get benefits from running on Facebook and to leverage off their, what do you call it, authentication on the web?
So you're talking about having your blog content appear on Facebook?
Yeah, as an app.
Oh, absolutely. At the end of the day, by hook or by crook, to be honest. And actually, equally, within your blog, to be having like the Facebook content, the little Facebook content widgets as well, to bringing that content in. Now again,
I'm not meaning that, I'm actually meaning embedding the actual blog as an app within Facebook.
Oh, as in a frame thing. I think you're probably better off actually just having the content come in. I know what you mean, but again, those pages are no following. Again, I think the thing with, as far as the user is concerned, if you're expecting user engagement to occur, when things appear in a non-Facebook framework, as in they appear more like a website, people tend to engage with them far, far less. And there's been evidence in the last few weeks coming out that shows that Facebook is down-weighting content that is coming not directly from Facebook sources. So if you're wanting it to appear in other people's streams as well, it can be a little less weighted upon. So if some people engage with your blog, even if it's an app within a Facebook framework, and then they say they like an article or they comment an article, if it effectively appears to come from a third-party source, that's more likely to be down-weighted in news streams. Now, obviously, from an SEO perspective, that's not so important, but at the end of the day, it's just about the content on the page. But there's definite evidence showing that Facebook is thinking, if I want you interacting within the box, because I think they're looking at what Twitter is doing from the point of view of seeing that they've just allowed you to interact with Twitter by any means, and they need some way to kind of weight that up. So I think within the page, then if somebody engages with a blog article that's embedded as a Facebook piece rather than an applet, I think you're going to get more gravity from that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Hiya. How important is video when it comes to SEO?
Video is not hugely important, but is doable. At the end of the day, it depends on, you can look at it from two perspectives. You can optimize video, you can optimize the tagging, you can optimize the page that it sits on, you make sure that the name of the video is smart and the tags that you've attached to that. But again, thinking, Google will regularly tell you that the #2 search engine is youtube.com. And obviously hosting your video on as many platforms as possible in as clear a way as possible is important. But making sure that actually if you put video together that you've thought about how well it can be found on YouTube. And again, thinking about the tags and thinking about the comments and all that side of things. Obviously, you can embed it wherever you choose to do it, but in the end of the day, realistically, you want your video to be found on places like youtube.com and vimeo.com. Again, there are no follow links from the likes of YouTube, so from a direct SEO perspective, it's not so strong, but at the end of the day, realistically, you want somebody to find that video, then come to your website. And obviously, again, think about, you can obviously embed links within videos now as well, and obviously make sure that, again, you just use SEO principles from the content that you put on your YouTube channel, that you've called your channel something sensible, that the content within the channel is meaningful. It's not just the textbook about us, and it's the same textbook about us that's on your website. Make it a little bit more meaningful, but a bit more keyword rich. And again, there's a greater chance to be found because, again, Google's search principles apply on youtube.com as they do anywhere else. And obviously, Google video search is looking at places like Dailymotion and Vimeo. And there are, if you're that way inclined, ways to do follow links out to places like Dailymotion as well. But that's an entirely different conversation. So it is a worthy thing. And again, just making sure that the content, the textual content around it is rich as well, I think is very key. Anyone else?
Hi, yeah. I was wondering if you had any insight on Google authorship and whether or not that might be a ranking factor. The reason I ask is that one of the account managers where I work dug up an old Google patent application from 2005 called Google Agent, which appears to describe the authorship markup, and it specifically states that the authorship will be a ranking factor.
A good one. I'll be honest, I'm not very strong on the authorship side of things. I do know that that Google have been saying quite recently that it is a struggle for them to work out, as in ownership of a particular item and trying to tie that back to the rankings. I think they have had a great struggle with trying to understand who is actually somebody that they're claiming to be. But I'll be honest, I'm not too au fait with that particular patent, I'll be quite honest. I think that at the end of the day, because again, we've been talking about in the talk yesterday, is Google trying to understand who it believes it's looking at. And again, just the same with Twitter, as again, Twitter have gone through that period of trying to authenticate individuals and making sure that the individual is recognized, et cetera, et cetera. And I think within the research I've read about what Google's trying to understand from Twitter and Facebook is that person who that person thinks they are, and does that person then tie back to the thing I found in the search rankings? And I think it is, from what I can read at the moment, at this stage, they're still somewhat manually doing it and trying to build those patterns, because I think they do struggle with somebody who's claiming to be that which they're not, or equally content that is claiming to be something original and it doesn't belong to that individual, it belongs to somebody else. Anyone else? Cool. Well, I'll call that a close. Thank you very much for all coming out today. Again, if you've got any questions, please come by afterwards or drop me a line by any manner of these means. Thank you very much for your time. Enjoy the rest of Social Media Week, and thank you.